Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload is going to be a video about the potential for a significant snowstorm across the country. Really, it won't be I can't call it a large snowstorm. It's just not going to be one. It's going to be a rather small one, though it's going to be pretty impactful for parts of the Midwest. It's going to have a little bit of rain to the south, nothing severe, but it's an interesting system, more of a Clipper-like storm, kind of a Pacific-like storm, Pacific moisture, but it's really not going to be doing much across the Midwest in terms of, heavy snowfall amounts. It's going to drop some moderate snow, but not too heavy. So before we get into this video, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to this channel. Check out my other videos, check out this whole channel, see if it's worthy of a subscription. If you're a recurring viewer and you like this channel, consider liking the videos. That really helps out the algorithm, and that's the best thing you can do if you like this channel. So thank you for that. Let's look at the GFS model. Right now, again, we are looking at very, very heavy snow across parts of the Northeast. There were several locations getting 1 to 4 inches of snow per hour across interior parts of the Northeast. So there were some ridiculous snowfall rates. Again, there's locations that exceeded well over the predicted amount. So that was kind of, I guess, that's what's sometimes with these unpredictable storms when they're developing really quickly. Sometimes they underperform, like we had early January, that one storm, and sometimes they overperform, like in this case. So right now, again, the storm that's going to be affecting parts of the Midwest is across really still off the ocean. It's not even entering parts of the U.S. But once it does, you can see right there, that's where it is. It drops some pretty heavy snow across the mountains, some lighter rain across the valleys. But it quickly ascends into the plains and through the mountains, through Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. You can see it's very small. It's a very small storm. Really no more than 100 miles in width, and it's pretty long, but it's not wide, and there's just not really a lot of wind with this either. But there are some winter storm watches being issued across southern Minnesota and central Wisconsin, so that is definitely something I will address in just a minute. But notice this thing intensifies, drops some pretty heavy snow again across Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, maybe not North Dakota, but mainly South Dakota, maybe northern Nebraska. Then it gets some precipitation in it from the southern U.S. You can see it gets a little bit of rain, kind of hedges onto it, and that allows it to get a little bit heavier snowfall rates across Michigan and Wisconsin, but it really doesn't do much. It's kind of underwhelming. You can see that that's a precipitation stream from the south. If it doesn't move to the north like this, it just kind of sags down to the south, almost like a cold front, and these two systems, these two pieces get disconnected. This one keeps moving off to the west or the east, this one keeps moving to the south and east, and they really never do anything significant for the East Coast. You can see it just kind of falls apart, though it does leave some remaining moisture. This cold front does stall across the southern U.S., which leaves quite a bit of moisture across the south, so some heavy rain will be possible. Just lots of rain potential for these parts. Again, you can see this earlier in the week was considered to be, they were considering the models putting this out as a bigger storm across the country. That, as of now, has since decreased significantly. There's still a chance. The European is still showing something, but it's less. Notice we get this polar dive across next week, midweek, Thursday. That could really cool things off across the Midwest, and this storm, that's what keeps it down to the south. And if the cold air is deep enough, you can see a little bit of snow across the southern U.S. We'll see about that. At this point, it doesn't seem too awfully conducive for that, but let's look at some of the snowfall amounts, shall we? Alright, so this is, again, the GFS model. It's only one of the models we look at. This isn't just the, be-all and a model that shows the exact snowfall rates. It's actually probably, one of the most erratic models, the one that jumps around the most. I still really like using it, but again, it's not the best weather model. This computer has been really slow today, and it's been getting on my nerves, but it's been taking its sweet old time, so I'll wait for this to load and I'll come back to you. Alright, so we got it to load, and notice that the heaviest snowfall amounts are across northern Iowa and into southern Minnesota and into southern Wisconsin. These amounts will basically be under half a foot, though there could be some locations exceeding maybe 7-8 inches. That doesn't seem awfully too likely, as this storm again is moisture starved, but we have seen systems in the past with a lot of lift and things working together with them, the snowfall ratios and the thermal profiles. we've had those systems overproduce and produce 7-8 inches, and we'll see. Notice that even though it does get strength from the southern stream of moisture across the south, right? Remember how that thing develops. The heaviest will still be prior to that across South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa. So really not overly impressive, this system. A little bit underwhelming, but it's a plus since many models weren't showing this up until now. Notice the NAM takes it very far to the north, almost into the Minneapolis area. That seems to be an outlier. It seems like most of the heavy precip will follow just south of that, south of Minneapolis, really into southern Wisconsin and into Iowa. It doesn't seem like, it seems like the NAM is a little bit far to the north. Kind of like an outlier. The GFS used to be like that a couple of runs ago, but as ever so shifted, you could see that the Canadian also is showing snow even further to the south, basically leaving Minneapolis with 1 to 2 inches and bringing it more into northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, into northern Iowa, and southern Minnesota. So, we'll have to see how this plays out. Again, each model has its own little story, including the European. If we were to look at the European model, you could see that the amounts are different. Let's go to the regions and let's select a better view of this. So again, the European has a little bit further to the south than the GFS, not as far south as the Canadian, but you can see that generally up to 7 inches. There could be some pockets, but generally under 6 inches should be the amount. Minneapolis, according to this model, would be right on a cusp between 2 to 4 inches, 2 to 5, so winter weather advisory probably will be issued. Notice that into northern Iowa, this European puts out quite a bit as well. Des Moines, Iowa, not seeing much, 1.2, 1 to 2 inches. Chicago, maybe 1 to 2, 2 to 3 inches tops. And into Michigan, not much either. But it's a little small system, small snowstorm that will be, pretty quick and really not worthy of calling it a large snowstorm, as it's not going to be one. But there are some winter weather, headlines being issued for some locations due to this system already. Notice that we have some winter storm watches across portions of southern Minnesota into South Dakota and into northern Iowa and into central Wisconsin. I did not want to click on that. Let's click right there for the weather center of La Crosse, the National Weather Service for La Crosse, Wisconsin. If you notice that they are under winter storm watch, so they are expecting more than 6 inches in 12 hours, which is probable. You can see that the total heavy snow possible with accumulations up to 4 to 8 inches. I really don't think that there will be 4 to 8. 8 seems a little bit far-fetched. No model is really showing that. But then again, the Kuchera snowfall rates could be pretty darn. Not the Kuchera. The thermal profiles could be supportive of a more fluffy snow, so that could be. I guess a cause for more air in the snow, making it more fluffier. So 8 inches maybe, possible across some locations. You can see for 6+, they're showing moderate and high across some locations. Maybe a bit overdoing it, but again, it's gonna be a quick hitter, which is probably why they're issuing a winter storm watch. It's probably gonna translate into winter storm warning, as you can see the bulk will fall early Sunday morning, and it'll be under 6 hours, and you can see that the temperatures will be relatively chilly, 25 to 35. So the snowfall ratios may be a little bit, higher, leading to some higher snowfall amounts. So it seems like those locations will be the highest across southern Minnesota. Let's go to Aberdeen, South Dakota, and see what they have. And again, it seems like there could be some good potential for some heavier snow across these locations as well. It's probably going to be narrow, that's the thing. Let's go to Watertown. It's going to be narrow, so you can see they only have a couple of counties in width of winter storm watches. They're still showing, for this location Saturday night, they're not specifying snowfall accumulation amounts, but they're showing the snow could be heavy at times. They do have a winter storm watch and 4 to 7 inches, which is rather significant. Now, if we were to look at some other locations like northern Illinois, I wouldn't say this is going to be a big storm, but 2 to 3 inches possible across some of these locations. It doesn't seem like it will be a big hitter. Maybe 1 to 2, 2 to 3. That's far-fetched, I would say. Especially since this the thermal profiles aren't going to be supportive of a light fluffy snow. It's going to be wet heavy snow, so it's going to take more precipitation in order to get it to accumulate higher. So that's not really anything too impressive. Let's look at southern, not southern, southern Minnesota, Minneapolis. I wanted to look at Minneapolis, and I wanted to show you how, if this changes in track, there could be a pretty big, pretty big change in, change in amounts. I'm getting a little bit lost here. Notice percent chance of 4 inches or more. They're showing 57 for Twin Cities. I don't know. I think it'll be a little bit less than that. I don't really think that there will be as much as 4 inches in the Twin Cities. They have a 50% chance. I would go lower, but you can see that parts of southern Minnesota up to nearing 100%, 91, 89, very high amounts, and 6 inches or more, also relatively high, 60%. So there could be some amounts, higher than 6 inches, but most locations, if you're in the winter storm watches, I would expect around 6 inches, nothing more, maybe a little bit more, but really not too much. If you're to look at parts of the interior, New York, Binghamton office, those locations got just an absolute blast of snow. They had, I think, 14 inches in some locations. Very quick snow that fell. And they have avalanche warnings in the west for the mountains. Now switching gears to the western U.S. And the same storm that's going to be affecting parts of the Midwest with that snow is now affecting parts of the mountainous west. And you can see that the amounts are going to be relatively higher, obviously, in the mountains, more support for condensation of snow. Clouds form better, especially when you have an uplifting wind, and you can see 12 to 18 inches easily falling across these locations, though again isolated as mountain snow is. So yeah, that's basically it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Consider liking the video, consider subscribing to this channel. I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya.